traveler, to another tale beneath the gentle glow of starlight. Tonight, I invite you to step quietly into the whispering woods, a place where every leaf holds a secret and every breeze carries the memory of ancient times. Within this enchanted forest lives Elara, a woman whose silver hair glimmers like moonlight and whose eyes have watched centuries come and go. Her days are filled with simple, quiet rituals, tending a garden that hums with life, reading from books that breathe with forgotten magic, and listening to the soft voices of the woods. But one autumn afternoon, a melody unlike any other drifts through the trees, a song of sorrow and longing carried on a flute by a lost young musician named Elara. From this chance meeting unfolds a story of healing, of connection, and of the timeless truth that kindness and music can guide even the most wandering souls back to light. So settle in, let your heart grow still, and allow the story to lead you gently into its embrace. The scent of aged paper and dried lavender was Elara's sanctuary. Her small cottage, nestled at the edge of the whispering woods, was a haven built from stones that had witnessed centuries and timbers that still hummed with forgotten magic. At the cusp of her 300th year, Elara, a woman whose lifespan stretched far beyond the ordinary, found herself in a state of gentle, comfortable routine. Her silver hair, woven with strands of moonlight, cascaded down her back, and her eyes, the color of a twilight sky, held a depth of wisdom and a perpetual, soft twinkle. Her days unfolded like a carefully unfurled scroll. Mornings began with the dew-kissed awakening of the forest, a symphony of birdsong and rustling leaves. Elara would emerge from her cottage, often clad in a simple, moss-green linen dress, and tend to her garden. Here, herbs that sung under the sun, flowers that bloomed with ethereal luminescence, and vegetables that tasted of pure earth thrived under her gentle touch. She didn't just garden, she communed. Each plant had a story, a personality, and Elara was their patient listener. Afternoons were devoted to her library, a room that occupied the heart of her cottage. Books bound in leather, silk, and even woven bark lined the walls from floor to ceiling. They were not merely stories, they were living chronicles containing spells, histories, recipes for potions that could mend broken hearts, and tales of creatures long vanished from the mortal world. Elara would settle into her worn armchair, the one that seemed to mold itself to her shape, and lose herself in these ancient texts. The rustle of pages, a sound as comforting as a purring cat, was her constant companion. Evenings were for quiet contemplation, often spent by the crackling hearth, a mug of her own brewed chamomile and honey warming her hands. Sometimes a stray sprite would flit in through an open window, drawn by the warmth and the scent of magic, and Elara would offer it a drop of dew from a spider web, a gesture of ancient hospitality. Elara had seen empires rise and fall, witnessed the fleeting lives of mortals like shooting stars, existence. She had loved and she had lost, but the sharp edges of grief had long ago been smoothed by time and understanding. Her longevity wasn't a burden, but a gift, a tapestry woven with threads of joy, sorrow, learning, and a profound appreciation for the small, beautiful moments that made up existence. One crisp autumn afternoon, as the leaves outside blazed in shades of crimson and gold, a new sound disturbed the usual peace of the whispering woods. It was a hesitant, reedy melody, unlike any bird or woodland creature Elara had ever heard. It held a note of unfamiliar sadness, a longing that tugged at her ancient heart. Curiosity, a timeless companion to her long life, stirred within her. She set down her book, a volume detailing the migratory patterns of celestial moths, and slipped on a pair of soft leather boots. Grabbing a woven basket, she stepped out into the dappled sunlight, following the melancholic tune. The melody led her deeper into the woods than she usually ventured, to a clearing she hadn't visited in decades. In the center of the clearing stood a young woman, no more than 20 years of age by mortal reckoning. Her hair, the color of spun moonlight, was tangled, and her clothes, once fine velvet, were now torn and stained. She sat hunched over a simple wooden flute, her small trembling hands coaxing the sorrowful notes from it. Tears streamed down her face, leaving glistening tracks on her pale cheeks. Elara approached slowly, her footsteps silent on the fallen leaves. The young woman didn't notice her until Elara was only a few feet away. She startled, the flute falling from her grasp and landing with a soft thud on the moss. Her eyes, wide and a startling shade of emerald green, fixed on Elara with a mixture of fear and awe. Who are you? The young woman stammered, her voice hoarse from crying. I am Elara, she replied, her voice a gentle murmur, like the rustling of leaves. And you, child, are lost and hurting. The young woman's gaze was drawn to Elara's silver hair, her timeless eyes. You are not of this world, are you? Elara offered a faint, knowing smile. I am of many worlds, and of this one for a very long time. But that is of no consequence now. What troubles you, little one? Hesitantly, the young woman introduced herself as Elara. She was a musician, a prodigy from a distant city who had been traveling with a troupe of performers. A storm, fierce and sudden, had separated her from her companions, leaving her stranded and disoriented in the whispering woods. Her flute, a treasured heirloom, was her only companion, and the music she played was a lament for her lost family and her uncertain future. I don't know where to go, Elara confessed, fresh tears welling in her eyes. Everything is so strange, and I fear I will never see them again. Elara's heart, though ancient, was not hardened. She knelt beside Lyra, her movements fluid and graceful. The woods can be daunting when you are alone and afraid, but fear often blinds us to the paths that are right before us. She gently picked picked up Lyra's flute. "This is a beautiful instrument. It sings with your pain, but it can also sing with hope, if you let it." Elara's touch on the flute was different. It seemed to shimmer with a faint inner light. She raised it to her lips, and a melody entirely new flowed from it. It was a tune that spoke of resilience, of the enduring strength of nature, of the quiet joy found in finding one's way. It was a melody that soothed the agitated spirit, that painted the world in colors of hope, and whispered of the comforting certainty of dawn after the darkest night. Lyra watched, mesmerized. The sadness that had clung to her like a shroud began to dissipate, replaced by a sense of wonder. The woods around them seemed to respond to Elara's music. The leaves overhead rustled in a lively rhythm. A tiny brook nearby seemed to chuckle, and a shy deer, usually unseen, emerged from the undergrowth to listen, its large, dark eyes fixed on Elara. When Elara lowered the flute, Lyra found her voice again, softer now, tinged with a dawning peace. "Thank you. I feel lighter. The woods offer solace to those who listen," Elara said, her gaze kind. "But you cannot stay here, exposed to the coming night. My cottage is not far. You will be safe there, and you can rest." Lyra nodded, a hesitant smile gracing her lips. "You are very kind, Elara. Kindness is a simple seed that grows into a mighty tree, given time and care," Elara replied. Rising, she extended a hand to Lyra, and the younger woman, feeling an inexplicable trust, took it. As they walked back towards Elara's cottage, the setting sun cast long golden shadows across the forest floor. Elara pointed out the constellations that were beginning to appear in the darkening sky, sharing tales of their celestial origins, stories that had been passed down through millennia. Lyra, captivated, listened with an attentiveness that Elara hadn't seen in any mortal in centuries. Back at the cottage, Elara lit a fire in the hearth, the flames dancing merrily. She offered Lyra a warm broth infused with herbs that smelled of sunshine and comfort, and a slice of her own freshly baked bread. Lyra ate with a gratitude that brought a lump to Elara's throat. "You have been through much, child," Elara said as Lyra finished her meal. "Rest now. Tomorrow we will see what the new day brings." Lyra, her eyes heavy with exhaustion and the echoes of Elara's calming presence, readily agreed. Elara showed her to a small, cozy room, filled with the scent of dried wildflowers and the soft glow of moonlight filtering through the window. Lyra, for the first time in days, felt a sense of security wash over her. Elara, meanwhile, returned to her armchair by the fire, a contented sigh escaping her lips. It had been a long time since she had welcomed a guest, much less a young human so full of life and vulnerability. There was something about Lyra's art, her youthful spirit, that reminded Elara of vibrant, fleeting things, like the first bloom of spring or a shooting star. The next morning, Lyra awoke to the gentle chirping of as the unfolding of a flower. The sunlight kissed her silver hair, making it gleam like spun platinum. "Good morning, Lyra," Elara greeted, her voice warm. "Did you sleep well, like a stone?" Lyra admitted with a smile. "Thank you, Elara, for everything." They spent the morning together. Elara taught Lyra how to identify the different herbs, explaining their properties and the ancient lore associated with them. Lyra, in turn, played her flute, her music now less tinged with sorrow and more with a nascent curiosity and a growing sense of peace. Elara listened, her eyes closed, a soft smile on her face. The music, infused with Lyra's renewed spirit, resonated with the very essence of the woods. "You have a gift, Lyra," Elara said when Lyra finished a particularly joyous tune. "Your music has a way of reaching the heart of things. It can mend and it can inspire." Lyra blushed. "I just play what I feel." "And what you feel is beautiful," Elara affirmed. "Perhaps, with a little guidance, you can learn to weave even more magic into your melodies. Magic that can guide lost souls or bring joy to weary hearts." Over the next few days, a gentle rhythm established itself between them. Lyra would help Elara in the garden, her youthful energy a refreshing contrast to Elara's quiet grace. In the afternoons, Lyra would practice her flute, with Elara offering subtle suggestions, not of technique, but of intention. Elara shared stories from her vast collection of books, tales of ancient heroes, of mythical beasts, and of the interconnectedness of all living things. Lyra absorbed it all, her emerald eyes wide with wonder. Elara discovered that Lyra possessed a natural empathy, a rare gift that allowed her to feel the emotions of others. This, combined with her musical talent, made her a natural conduit for certain kinds of subtler magic. The magic of healing, of comfort, of connection. One cloudy afternoon, as a gentle rain pattered against the cottage windows, Lyra was practicing a mournful tune. She suddenly stopped, her brow furrowed. "I feel a presence," she whispered, her gaze distant. "Someone is in distress." Elara listened, her ancient senses attuned to the subtle vibrations of the wood. "You are right, child. A young boy, lost and frightened, not far from the edge of the woods. He has been separated from his family." Lyra's eyes lit up with a new purpose. "Can we help him?" Elara smiled. Yes, we can." Together, they walked towards the edge of the woods. Lyra, guided by her intuition and the faint thrumming thread of the boy's fear, led the way. Elara walked beside her, her presence a calming anchor. As they approached a small, overgrown path, a small boy, no older than 7, emerged, his face streaked with dirt and tears. He looked up, his eyes wide with terror. Before Elara could speak, Lyra raised her flute to her lips. She played a soft, gentle melody, one that spoke of warmth, of safety, of the familiar comfort of home. The boy, initially wary, slowly began to relax. His frightened whimpers subsided, replaced by a quiet curiosity. When Lyra finished, she knelt before him. "Hello," she said, her voice as soft as moss. "Are you lost?" The boy nodded, tears still on his cheeks. "I can't find my mama." "We will help you find her," Elara assured him, her voice a soothing balm. "What is your name?" "Leo," the boy whispered. Elara looked at Lyra. "Your music, Lyra, it calmed his fear. Now my knowledge can guide us." She produced a small, intricately carved compass from her basket. "This will lead us to his village if we follow its true north." They led Leo back toward his village. As they neared the outskirts, a woman, her face etched with worry, came running towards them, her arms open wide. Leo ran into her embrace, his cries of relief echoing through the air. The woman, Leo's mother, was overcome with gratitude. She thanked Elara and Lyra profusely, her voice choked with emotion. Elara, with her usual quiet humility, simply smiled and said, "The woods are generous, and sometimes they return what is lost." As they walked back towards the cottage, Lyra's heart was full. It felt so good, Elara, to help him, to use my music like that. "Indeed," Elara said, a knowing glint in her eyes. "You have a gift, Lyra, a gift that can bring light into the darkest of places. And that, child, is a magic more potent than any spell." The days continued to unfold in their serene, comfortable pattern. Lyra found herself growing more at ease in the whispering woods, less a lost traveler and more a welcomed visitor. She learned to brew teas with Elara, to understand the subtle languages of the forest, and to find joy in the smallest of moments. Her music evolved, becoming richer, more nuanced, filled with the wisdom she was absorbing and the gentle magic she was learning to channel. One evening, as they sat by the fire, Lyra looked at Elara, a question forming on her lips. "Elara," she began hesitantly, "do you ever miss living a shorter life? A life with less time for everything?" Elara considered the question, her gaze soft and contemplative. "Mortals measure life by its length. I measure it by its depth. Every moment, whether it lasts a day or 1,000 years, holds its own unique beauty. The joy of a single bloom, the wisdom of a fallen leaf, the laughter of a child. These are treasures that transcend time." She picked up a smooth gray stone from the hearth. "This stone has seen mountains rise and fall. It has been shaped by wind and water. Does it regret the slow erosion of its edges, or does it embrace the transformation?" Lyra pondered this. She had always felt a pressure, a fleetingness to her own existence, a need to achieve, to experience everything before time ran out. Elara's perspective offered a profound sense of release. "I think I'm beginning to understand," Lyra whispered. "Understanding is a seed that when planted in a receptive heart, can grow into a forest of wisdom. Elara replied, her smile reaching her eyes. You are growing, Lyra. You are finding your own path, your own unique song. Lyra's time in the Whispering Woods was drawing to a close. She had learned to trust the woods, to find comfort in its embrace, and to feel a sense of belonging she had never thought possible. She had also learned that her path, while different from her companions, was no less valid, and perhaps even more potent. The day she announced her departure, there was a bittersweet tinge to the air. I think, Lyra said, her voice a little shaky, it is time for me to try and find my troop, to see if they are safe. Elara nodded, her eyes filled with a gentle understanding. Your heart calls you, Lyra, and that is a call that must be answered. She gifted Lyra a small, intricately woven pouch filled with dried lavender and a few of her most potent healing herbs. These will offer you comfort on your journey, Elara said. And remember, child, the magic you have found here can be carried with you. It resides within you, always. Lyra embraced Elara tightly. Thank you for everything, Elara. For your kindness, for your wisdom, for showing me a different way of seeing the world. Go, Lyra, Elara whispered, her voice laced with affection. And let your song fill the world. As Lyra, now looking more confident and radiant than when she first arrived, stepped out of the cottage and into the dappled sunlight, Elara watched her go. She knew that Lyra would find her way. The woods had taught her resilience, and Elara had given her the tools to navigate not just the physical world, but the world of her own heart. Elara returned to her cottage, the silence of familiar and welcome presence once more. The scent of lavender and aged paper welcomed her back into her sanctuary. She settled into her armchair, picking up her book on celestial moths, but her mind was not entirely on the ancient text. It was filled with the image of Lyra, her emerald eyes shining, her flute held with a newfound confidence. She had witnessed the fleeting beauty of Lyra's time in her care. It was a small, bright chapter in the vast expanse of her own existence, a reminder that even for one who lives for centuries, the simple act of sharing kindness, wisdom, and a touch of magic could bring a profound sense of fulfillment. As the twilight deepened, Elara brewed herself a cup of chamomile tea, its warmth spreading through her ancient bones. The whispering woods whispered its secrets to her, the rustling leaves a lullaby of contentment. She had offered comfort and guidance to a lost soul, and in return she had been reminded of the enduring beauty of connection, the simple joy of a shared melody, and the quiet, heartwarming magic that could be found in the most unexpected of encounters. And in the gentle embrace of her timeless existence, Elara felt a profound sense of peace, as warm and as comforting as the glow of the hearth. The world, in its constant flux, received it with open arms. And so, as the fire in Elara's heart burns low and the forest sings its eternal lullaby, we leave behind the cottage of lavender and aged paper, carrying with us the lessons whispered between the lines of this tale. We have seen how music can soothe fear, how wisdom can guide the lost, and how even brief encounters can shape the course of a life forever. Elara reminded us that it is not the length of our days, but the depth of each moment that makes life radiant. And Lyra showed us the courage it takes to rediscover hope and share it with the world. As you drift into your own dreams tonight, may you remember that kindness is a seed, music is a healing touch, and every connection, no matter how fleeting, is a form of magic. Thank you for joining me in this story. Until we meet again, may your nights be gentle, your rest be deep, and your spirit always open to wonder.